Santa Claus doesn't mop floors. Chapter 4, A Chill in the Air. It's freezing in here, Eddie complained. It was the morning after Eli had been in the cafeteria. Eddie, Melody, Liza, and Howie were the first children in their classroom. You can see your breath, it's so cold, Howie said. They all took turns blowing cold smoke rings at each other. I bet the new janitor forgot to turn on the heat, Liza said. What's he trying to do, freeze us to death? Melody shivered and hugged herself to keep warm. We better go find him and tell him to turn up the thermostat, Howie suggested. Before Principal Davis gets mad and fires him. The 4 kids went to the janitors in the basement. Sure enough, there was Mr. Jolly filling a bucket with sudsy water. Melody grabbed Howie. He must be crazy. He's wearing shorts. In a t-shirt, Howie whispered. The sight of Mr. Jolly's bare legs and arms made Liza shiver. The new janitor still wore his bright green tennis shoes and no socks. Well, good morning, he boomed when he saw the 4 children. What can I do for ya? We thought we'd remind you to turn on the heat, Howie said. It's a bit cold here this morning. Little clouds formed as Howie spoke to prove his point. Nonsense, Mr. Jolly laughed. It was way too warm in here. I finally had to turn the heat down so I wouldn't melt. But it's the dead of winter, Eddie interrupted. It's freezing outside, Melody added. Mr. Jolly peeped out the little window. Why, there isn't even the tiniest snowflake out there, not a glimmer of ice, nor a spot of slush. It's practically summer. Now you kids scoot to class. With that, Mr. Jolly continued mixing white bubbles into his bucket. Eddie led his friends down the hall. I thought this guy was weird, he said. He's short on brains as well as having short friends. Liza pulled her jacket tight. I guess we'll just have to make do. Not me, Eddie exclaimed. I'm getting something done here. I'm getting some heat. Eddie turned and stomped away. With his friends following, he turned a corner and opened a closet. What are you doing? Howie whispered. We're not allowed in there. We're not allowed to do much of anything, Eddie said as he turned on a light. But that's never stopped me before. Then he pointed to a big thermostat on the wall. That's just what we need. Eddie twisted the dial. Our worries are over, he said as he shut the closet door. It ought to be warming up in here in no time flat. Eddie was right. In less than 20 minutes, they were able to shed their coats. Some kids even took off their sweaters. They were just settling down to their English work when Melody decided she had to go to the bathroom. Eddie watched as she left the classroom. Then he raised his hand. Yes, Eddie, Mrs. Ewing asked. I need to get something out in the hall, Eddie said. I need my pencil. Well, make it quick, Mrs. Ewing snapped. Sure thing, Eddie said as he rushed out the door. He spied Melody at the water fountain. She was leaning over, slurping loudly. Eddie sneaked up behind her and dunked her head into the ice-cold water. Melody stood up, sputtering. I'm going to get you for that, she said, curling her hand into a fist. But before she had a chance to sock him, real good one, Mr. Jolly walked around the corner and ran right into Eddie. Gee, Mr. Jolly, Eddie snapped. You ought to watch where you're going. Serves you right, Melody giggled. Then she glanced up at Mr. Jolly. Are you okay? Mr. Jolly pulled on his beard. A little river of sweat trickled down his nose and then dripped to the floor. He pulled out a green and white checkered handkerchief and wiped his face. Yes, I think I'll be just fine, he said. It's just that it's so warm in this blasted building. I can't stand warm temperatures. Feels fine to me, Melody said. Yeah, Eddie huffed. It's much warmer than this morning. Mr. Jolly looked thoughtfully at Eddie, and then he pulled out his little red notebook and jotted something down. You're always writing stuff down, Eddie commented. What is that notebook for anyway? Mr. Jolly dabbed his forehead. Oh, it's just a list of some things. But I don't have time to talk now. I have to do something about this temperature. And with a jingling of keys, he was gone. Did you hear that? Eddie groaned. I'll see that we turn up the thermostat. But there was nothing Eddie and Melody could do about it because Mrs. Ewing rushed out in the hall and took them each by the arm. Into the classroom and to your work, she snapped. This instant. They hadn't even finished their English when the temperature started to drop. Mrs. Ewing was the first to notice. She shivered and slipped into her sweater. It wasn't long before all the kids in the class had their sweaters on too. Liza rubbed her hands together. It's so cold I can hardly write, she whispered. Howie nodded as he tucked his hands under his armpits. My hands feel like frozen fish, he moaned. During math, Melody started to sniff. My nose is starting to run. I think my pencil is frozen to my hand, Eddie groaned. By recess time, the kids in Mrs. Ewing's third grade were so cold they didn't even want to go outside. Nonsense, Mrs. Ewing scolded. Some fresh air is just what we need. Maybe if we all get some exercise, we'll warm up. All the kids buttoned up their coats and put on their mittens as they filled outside. I don't believe it, Howie yelled. It's warmer outside than inside. It was true. With the sun shining on them, it felt 10 degrees warmer. Mr. Jolly's going to freeze us to death this winter, Melody said. He told us he hates it warm. Maybe we could turn the thermostat back up, Liza suggested. No, Howie moaned. Mr. Jolly would just turn it back to the Arctic zone. Well, I'm not going to freeze to death all winter long, Eddie snapped. What can you do? Melody asked. Eddie smiled. I'll make him sorry he ever heard of Bailey Elementary School. He'll be so tired from cleaning up after me, he won't have time to mess with the temperature. You can't do that, Liza insisted. Why not? Eddie asked. If you do, he'll probably quit his job. And it's almost Christmas. What would Mr. Jolly do without a job during the holidays? Liza asked. Christmas is nothing but a scheme by stores to make suckers spend money. He'll be better off without a job, Eddie said. Mr. Principal Davis would kill us, Melody reminded him. I'm not afraid of him, Eddie said. I'm not afraid of anyone.